This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.
What is happening, you guys? Welcome back to Let's Go Win podcast. I have someone that I have befriended recently, and she is awesome. Berta Medina is an eternal optimist who believes in the power of generosity and is passionate about sharing her message that dreamers truly succeed. After years of building, operating, and growing her own successful business, she's taken her experience and love for philanthropy to travel to Africa on a harrowing climb to Mount Kilimanjaro's peak as part of a mission trip to change the world for Maasai children. Since she reached the peak at 19,341 feet, she has re-envisioned the importance of goals and the power of generosity. Now, Berta helps businesses and individuals connect genuinely, give generously, and reach a level of success and fulfillment. Berta is a keynote speaker, professional certified coach, author, and host of the Dreamers Succeed podcast. Berta, you've been a busy young lady. How are you doing today?
Woohoo! Thank you, JM. Everything is wonderful. Thanks for the young. It's a stretch, but I'll take it. Appreciate you having me on and just excited to share some time with you. Thanks again.
Oh, it's truly my pleasure. So you have obviously a defining moment when you get to Mount Kilimanjaro Peak. Give us a flavor of what that looked like for you. What was the mission? I read it, but I want to know a little bit more about what that was all about.
Awesome. Sure. And I'll take you back to how it started, how I found out. I've always had Africa and Kenya working with the Maasai on my vision board ever since I was a kid, before I knew what vision boards were. And my daughter found this opportunity. She was living in Colorado Springs at the time. Someone she was following on Instagram had this post about, this was January, about a climb that they were doing. It was a fundraising effort. We were going to be sponsoring children. And so the purpose of the mission trip was you sponsor a child who was 5 years old at the time, give or take. And then you helped fundraise just under $6,000. It was actually $5,895, which is how many meters it is to the peak of Mount Kilimanjaro. And that would guarantee that this child had medical, educational, and nutritional needs covered until they graduated their version of high school. Now, in Kenya, schools are public, but they're not free. So for a lot of these people living in these Maasai villages way below the poverty line, it's just not an option. It's too much of a stretch. So that cycle sort of continues. And this was really going to give these children an opportunity to be able to break that cycle and get an education and, climb out of that cycle of poverty. So we had 9 months to plan. I'm born and raised in Miami. We don't have mountains or hills here even. 47 years old, postmenopausal grandma, working like a crazy maniac. And then this opportunity sort of falls on my lap because God is so gracious. And I just said, I'm doing it. So I had, 9 months to fundraise and get, my lungs in order. And it was just crazy. So we spent 3 weeks in Kenya and Tanzania. 7 days on the mountain, no communication, no showers. And I'm a germaphobe, right? So I'm a 3 shower a day girl. No showers for me was very uncomfortable. And it was just, I think what happened to me, JM, is that we all had the pictures of our respective child. We had 23 climbers on this mission, hanging from our backpacks. And that was really, really great fuel because it sucks, man. There are days when it just sucks. And that was, we had very clear vision of why we were doing it. And I remember reaching the summit on day 6, and it had been a very long morning. We left around, 1 a.m. It was 0 degrees exactly. And I've never prayed for the sun so much in my life because that was going to be the one little warmth that we were going to get. And I remember just as I'm nearing that peak, I'm thinking, man, there's a lot of power behind purpose when you're really driven. By all accounts, I'm not a marathoner. That was the first mountain I'd ever climbed. It's just not Cubans don't climb mountains, right? And but it really taught me about that, all the power that's behind when you've got a really clear passion and clear dream and clear vision on what you want to accomplish. So it was like I got there, and you're only allowed to be up there 15 minutes because there's barely any oxygen, and it's a safety concern. But I just sucked it dry, man. I cried more than I cried in a long time. I think it was a combination of exhaustion and pain, and just knowing that Sipao was set. Sipao was my little boy, by the way, his who I had sponsored, and I came down just different. It's weird, but I was different.
Well, I love that you talk about the purpose and why. I'm in my head. I'm very inspired and laughing at the South Floridian in 0 degrees. The biggest mountain in Florida is literally the landfill. That's the
right.
So have you kept? I'm sorry, I didn't catch the little boy's name. Did you keep in touch with him?
Sipao, yes, Sipao. So when I came back from that trip, like I said, Sipao was 5 years old. I had the honor of meeting his parents and his grandmother. And I committed to coming back every couple of years to Kenya to visit. We write a lot, and with the sponsorships, I think one of the things, the organization I traveled with is One Child, and they're a great organization out of Colorado Springs, but they're very, very involved and very committed to that sponsor-child relationship. And they really nurture that. So it gave me a great opportunity to really build a relationship with him. I went back 2 years later. I was supposed to go back last year, but due to the pandemic. And Sipao now is 12. He is thriving in school. He wants to be a pastor when he grows up. And he's changing the world in his community. I came back totally fired up. I love the idea of that we were able to actually meet our children. And just decided this is what I want to do with my life is serve these kids to the best of my ability. And I came back, and I've been in title for 28 years, loved every minute of it. Knew I would be doing that until I was dead because I loved it that much. And I sat my husband and my children down and said, hey, I'm retiring from title, and I was already in getting my professional coaching certification at the University of Miami. And I said, I'm going to coach full time, and this is going to be my life, mission tripping and serving these kids. And that's what happened. 2 months later, I was retired from a business I'd been in all my life, and gave away my Miami business to some people that were really good to me, gave away my Orlando business to some people who were really good to me there, and never looked back. It's been crazy, JM.
Let's talk about that crazy, because I know I was fortunate enough to be a guest on your podcast, and you bring so much amazing energy and knowledge to it. Talk about this journey, okay, 28 years. Okay, I'm done. I'm going to start something different, not completely without a plan. As you said, you were working on coaching, but talk about that journey and what it's really brought to you and to your life. And obviously you're influencing so many more out there. So talk a little bit about that journey, if you would.
I think what happened was that when I realized how much there was to do, and listen, right before this trip came into my universe, I remember looking at myself one day in the mirror, and I was still 46. It was a year before or something like that. And I remember thinking, who the hell are you? Why do you have so many wrinkles? And what have you done with Berta? I was, married 26 years by that time, had raised 2 amazing kids, had built a successful business. My husband and I, both my mother-in-law and my mother lived with us. So we were caring for our moms, and all the weight that comes with all of this. And I sort of felt like I had lost myself in the process. I was checking off all these boxes, that society deems necessary that we check off. But somehow I was full of empty is what I felt. It's the only way I could describe it. And I knew that I needed to sort of paddle my heart back into existence. And then lo and behold, this trip comes a few months later, and I decided I'm going to get way out of my comfort zone. we're Cuban, Catholic. Cuban women don't travel out of the country without their husbands. And, you have all the scrutiny of the Cuban grandmothers around you, looking at you like, what are you doing? And I was just sort of, tunnel vision into what came next. And so that invitation to be of service really was the game changer. It was the meat into this new life that I wanted. And I either had the choice to take it and run with it, or to crawl back into that comfortability and decide not to do anything about it. So,
well, breaking down some of these social boundaries, or whatever you want to call them, these expectations of you as a Cuban Catholic woman, I guess is kind of how you describe that. I mean, everyone faces this at some point. And you have this why that's saying, nope, it's bigger than that. Everybody's looking for this. And you obviously have the Dreamers Succeed podcast. What's your best piece of advice for those that know there's something more, but man, I'm expected to do this. I can't do this because my religion or my family or whatever that's holding us back. What would be your best piece of advice to say, yes, you can?
I think, and I didn't ask you before, but I think just stop putting up with your own bullshit, right? Just do it scared. Everything is scary, and we're meant to be scared. That's what brings sort of the spice to life. You know how Eleanor Roosevelt said, do one thing every day that scares you. That's my motto. And I think just do it scared, and know and follow and listen. Your soul knows what it knows. And any time that we're straying from that a little more, we lose a little piece of ourselves. And it's not all the time that you can capture that and say, you know what, I'm gonna reset and do something about it. So we have to be mindful of it. I think a good way to know is, listen, if you hate Mondays, something is wrong.
Do you have any advice to finding that, whether it be introspection, going away on a trip? Like, that quiet time is so key for me. Obviously, you hiking may be a great thing. Maybe, have you been hiking since? Maybe this is the thing.
All the time. Now I'm like an avid hiker, right? Yeah, and I think that alone time, we got to get away from the noise. And I remember coming back from that trip and swearing to myself that I would take a vacation by myself every year after that. And now it's, my husband laughs and he says, you've gone a little overboard. So I take 12 vacations a year on my calendar. I schedule that in. And the rest of life happens around those 12 vacations, but 6 of them I take by myself. And I really learned to love this person who I didn't know for, 47 years. And she's kind of cool and kind of okay. And, not as much of a badass as she wants to be, but she's working on it, So I think that and really just reconnecting with who you are is going to show you those passions, show you that alignment with what really means something to you. A lot of people have that heart for service. I think we're born with givers' hearts and a heart for service. It has to be sort of beat out of us. But when we reconnect with that, that does something and sparks things that we might not but it's hard to find all of that when we're in the busy of the noise and in the noise of the busy.
So logistically speaking, you go away for 6 vacations a year. And again, I know listeners are going, this is my nightmare. What the heck do you do with yourself for 2 days? Can you talk just about kind of what you do? And I know it sounds almost elementary, but I think there's some real keys you're about to tell us that you do on these vacations, quote unquote, where you're really getting some me time.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting, and this is going to sound almost counterproductive, but I have a really, really great morning routine. Okay. And I think everybody should have a good morning routine. The earlier you wake up, the more hours you get in a day. I think most of you who know that, who practice that, know that 5 a.m., that 5 to 7 a.m. time for me is crucial. Sometimes by 7 a.m., I'm almost done with all my work for the day, unless I have podcasts and recordings and presentations and clients. But that morning routine. And even when I'm on vacation, I stick to the morning routine. Okay. I'm very diligent about it because that's my meditation time. That's my reading time. That's my planning my day time. I get my day organized that way. But even when I'm away, I say I'm away, but I'm working, right? I have I everywhere that I travel, my office is with me. It's my, briefcase with my laptop and my headphones and whatever books I'm reading at the time. But our life, JM, for the most part, it's very mobile, and I can do it from anywhere. So it's not that I'm away. I'm as disconnected as I want to be, but if I need to connect, I can. And I will go out and I'll be in nature every day. I will. I just spent 7 days in Tennessee, and I think I went to the movies 5 days in a row. I love going to the movies by myself. Now that they're open again, and we need to help these theaters. They're struggling because people don't know they're open, and people are afraid to go, and they're very clean, and they're practicing social distancing. So guys, go to the movies. And I connect. I have people that I know everywhere. So I try to connect with at least one person when I'm away. We'll do a coffee or a lunch or a dinner or whatever it is. And I just laugh. I laugh with others. I laugh with myself. I laugh at myself a lot. And I just own my day. And I travel. It's going to be weird, sound weird. I travel with a whiteboard everywhere I go. I drive a lot. And if I'm flying somewhere, I'll buy one wherever I go. Because there's always, when you're in that space, the ideas are always coming, and you want to have somewhere to let them land. So that's just me. It's a weird little thing, but I'm a whiteboard junkie.
No, not at all. I mean, look, you said some pretty profound statements, as in a 47-year-old didn't really know myself.
Mm-hmm.
For you empty nesters listening, 2 kids, amazing kiddos that she raised. How are they taking this newfound mom? Not that you've changed radically. I'm sure you're the same core values of the human being, but maybe there's an extra spark how have they kind of seen this as you've grown into really fulfilling what was in you all along?
Yeah, that's a great question, JM. And I love that you asked it today, because I had something really interesting happen. I think my kids, for the most part, have been extremely supportive of the crazy, right? My mom thought I'd lost it. My husband thought I'd fallen on the mountain and hit my head and just come back completely whacked out, whatever. But I was very traditional. I always worked. But when the kids were home, I would work from home. I was Miss Soccer Mom and extracurricular and room mom, and I did as much as I could, always to take care of their needs. I thank God that I was able to do that, because we don't get to parent again. Once they're grown, they're grown. So I tell people, do what you must, because those first 18 years go by really, really fast. Fortunately, my kids I'm very close with them. They are my business partners today. They are extremely creative. So I get to play with them. But I remember hearing the conversations, as I started to morph into this new space and this new world, again, from a very supportive point of view. But it's almost like I gave them permission, especially for my daughter, who is, she cannot be held back. She's a traveler. She's a traveling photographer. She's lived wherever she's wanted to live. She comes back. My granddaughter's homeschooled, so she has the ease of being able to do that. But for example, my son is a creative writer. So when I came back from Kenya, I was transitioning out of my office into an office in my husband's building. And I lost one of my journals, my mountain journal. I had a journal for the mission and a journal for the mountain. And I just went a poop, whatever. And when I found it, I put everything into the computer, and my son lives in Orlando, is about 4 hours away. And I sent it to him. It was like 26 pages of 10 fonts, single space. And I said, listen, everything you want to know about the Africa trip is here. Just that way you can catch up. We caught up a little bit, but so he calls me about a week later and he says, Mom, you have a book here. And I said, listen, if you can turn this, I am not a writer. Okay. I said, if you can turn this into a book, I will pay to get it printed, and all the money that we make, we will donate to one child for whatever needs that they have. And we did, and it was a fun process. It took about 2 months for us to put things together. It is not a literary masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, but my son is a good writer. He just, I want to keep your voice, Mom. And I go, yeah, you're gonna keep it stupid, right? But it was just a fun project. And we were able to raise some good money and help build a boys and girls dorm in one of the Hope Centers. And that just snowballed into all this other stuff that started happening. So they were very much involved in the journey. And what's really interesting, Jay, my daughter called me yesterday, and my granddaughter is 9 years old. Okay, Chloe she's a trip and a half, and she's 9 going on 30, right? So she says, you're never going to believe the conversation Chloe just had with one of her best friends, who is also 9 years old, Olivia. So she asks Olivia what's her dream, and they're talking about their dreams. And Olivia tells her that she wants to be a model. And she says, well, you're probably going to have to find an agency. There are certain things you're going to do. You got to see what kind of modeling you want to do, what you want to get into. And she says, but we got to find out by when you want to do this. She said, I'm going to coach you. I'm going to be your coach. This is my granddaughter at 9 years old. And Olivia's all freaking out. And she says, oh my goodness, that's great. We'll make a plan of what we have to do. And my granddaughter's asking her, how often do you want to coach? So Olivia, of course, 9 years old, not knowing, she says, I think if we coach twice a day, I think we'll get where I need to go, but I want to pay you. I'm going to pay you $10 a month. And my granddaughter's like, that would be great, but right now I'm just learning and I'm practicing. So you don't have to pay me, but this is going to be a great experience for all of us. So she calls me, my daughter calls me, she's telling me the story. And then my granddaughter gets on the phone and she says, Mima, did I tell you that I'm a life coach? I already have a client. And our kids are never going to do what we tell them, but they're always going to do what they see. So if I somehow, even if it was unintentional, have given them permission to listen, go after your dreams, venture beyond your comfort zone, don't stick to the boundaries that the boundaries of tradition, I call them. And I'm very traditional, and I'm old fashioned within reason. I don't want them to be held back. And I love that's normal for Chloe. My kids had to grow into that normalcy or morph into that normalcy. For Chloe, it's just normal for her. It's just life.
Well, I love what you said. And what's, I guess, the message I'm hearing is, look, tradition is not bad. That tradition is great. However, if it gets in the way of your dream, screw tradition to it, right? It's like, I love it. I mean, and so Dreamers Succeed podcast, it speaks to that, is like, look, I realize it's against the norm. At some point, women couldn't vote, and all the things that have happened, those were not traditions that are great necessarily. That doesn't mean they're all bad. That's what I'm really hearing. What a cool story with your granddaughter. That's so cool.
Yeah, I thought that was fun.
So you say do it scared, and I understand that idea. But for those that do get frozen by fear, and they know this is what's on the other side, if I can just, what is your piece of advice? So do it scared, got it. But what's maybe the first thing that we can nudge, get them pushed in the right direction to do it scared?
Yeah, I just say it's so much scarier to live a life of mediocrity, right? But for some people, it's hard for them to understand that. I always say, if I can get people dreaming, I can get them to step into possibility. And if I can get them to step into possibility, crossing that threshold of the fear is almost a no-brainer. My focus is adventure coaching. So I always say, listen, if I can get you to jump out of a plane with me, I can accomplish with you in 6 months what would take me 3 years at a Starbucks, because you're immediately, pushing yourself out of that comfort zone. I had a client early on, Marie, and I share her story quite a bit, but she, we're coaching, and she was just out of a really toxic relationship. She had lost her house. She moved in with her parents, single mom of 2 kids, and she was struggling. She put on about 98 pounds in an 8-year toxic relationship. And we're coaching, and the youth fair is like our county fair in Miami. And so, I just wanted to get her to go out and have fun. And we've known each other for a number of years. Let's just go and have fun and, take your son, and we'll just go and just laugh a little at the fair. And she said, "Oh, I don't go to the fair." And I said, "What do you mean you don't go to the fair?" She goes, "Oh, I never go to the fair." I go, "Why?" She goes, "Because I don't write anything." And I said, "Why?" And I'm like a roller coaster junkie. I don't care. Let's go. The more adrenaline, the better. And she said, "Because I'm afraid of heights." So what I always tell people now is, you never tell an adventure coach that you're afraid of heights, right? So we had our session. It was a Saturday session. She didn't have her son that weekend. And I tell her, "Listen, meet me at Starbucks, but at 5 a.m. on Saturday." She's like, "What?" I go, "At 5 o'clock. And she's crazy. She showed up, right? So I put her in my car and we drive out to Clewiston, which is about an hour and a half from where we were meeting. And there's a place called Florida Air Ridge Park. And it is a hang gliding air park. So we get there and she's like hyperventilating in my car. We'll pull up in a pink convertible Beetle. And she's like, "I'm not doing it." And I said, "Listen, your flight is paid for. You don't have to do it, but I'm going to do it. You can watch me. You can take pictures, whatever." So by the time it was our turn, we had to wait about 35 minutes. She mustered the courage to do it. And she was up at 1,000 feet for 14 minutes. And when she came down, she just couldn't. It was like she was, levitating. And she said, "You know what? If I told my kids and my parents what I just did, they would never believe me." And I said, "Actually, they will, because I had the whole flight recorded. And you have enough video and pictures to remind yourself every time you need that reminder that fear ceases to exist the moment that you face it." And you know what? Everything started falling into place. It had nothing to do with me. But what happened was that she started questioning, "Hey, if I was afraid of heights and I wouldn't have done it, but now I did it and I realize I'm still here, what other limiting beliefs, what other doubts, what other fears am I giving into that are preventing me from moving my life forward?" She switched jobs after 30 years almost in the same job. Finally got her house. Everything started coming together for her because of her. Because it wasn't me. I didn't force her to get up there. I couldn't have forced her if I tried. She went up there and dared to do it. She was just ready for a change. And that was the first little catalyst to make that change.
It's pretty cool. I imagine your clients you're talking about, "Hey, what's something that really scares you?" I imagine that's part of your process. One of the things that I just have to ask, because it's come up a couple times, and you're clearly, again, breaking, I don't know what they would be. It's not boundaries. It's like expectations, perhaps, where she was working a job for 30 years. And so most people would say, "Okay, that's a darn good career." But she actually shifted careers just as you did after 28 years. Talk to me and the audience a bit about ageism and this whole idea, because the world is shifting. I need people to hop on board. It doesn't matter what your
Yes.
age is. Tom
Yes.
Brady is shifting the idea in the NFL. And that sounds like that's what you're doing with your clients and your audience. So can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question, Jan, because I think what happens is that we think, okay, now we're at this point and that's it. And I'll give you the perfect example. My husband is wonderful. We've been married 33 years and we were going through a rough patch, at about year 27. It was right. We were in counseling right as I was, preparing and left for this trip to my first mission trip. And I remember at one point when the therapist, Ray, who's amazing, was getting a little bit frustrated because, my husband would show up late or else he wouldn't show up at all. And I was like, "I'm done with this and I'm going to keep coming and he's going to keep paying." And I was just like in that whatever sassy mood. And my husband and Ray said, "Okay, guys, we got to figure this out." So he says, "George, tell me where you are." At the time he was like 51 or something. And my husband said, "Listen, I've built my business. I have raised my kids. I want to come home and watch TV. And I want to play with my granddaughter. And I want to go on," he rides Harleys. I want to go on 2 rides with my friends a year. I want to take a nice vacation with my family. And that's it. I just want to chill." And then Ray looks at me and he goes, "Okay, what about you, Berta?" And I'm like, "I am just getting started." Right. So he was like, this is the divide. But I think I totally respect when people are in that space. I think what happens is that they're not daring to dream. Because I can tell you, I'm 53 right now. My 50s were a lot better than my 40s. And my 40s, I know for sure were a lot better than my 30s. So I'm like, everybody's like, oh my God, no, are you kidding? I'm like, bring on 60, man. I can't wait because I know it's going to be even better. And I'm seeing it a lot more, JM, than I was before, especially with empty nesters, especially with people, women especially, that have reached that age where they're like, the hell with this. I don't know, especially after COVID. I don't know how long I've got here. I've got to hurry up and live my life and do my thing. And that's another thing with COVID, JM, that I have a lot of cousins my age that, you know, they think I'm crazy. I'm the crazy. She's always somewhere else. What is she up to now? They'll call me and be like, hey, where are you? Where in the world are you today? And they've been very, very afraid with COVID. They've been staying inside, and I respect it. I'm totally respectful, to each his own. Everybody has their own levels of, I'm careful. I'm not, it's not that I'm out there but I'm living my life. I mean, I traveled like a crazy woman last year because it was just in my plans. And I asked one of them, because she called me out on it a few months ago, one of my cousins. And I said, you know, the problem with me is that I'm not afraid of dying, because I've lived 2 lifetimes already. And I have done everything. I have a 5-gallon drum. I don't have a bucket list. I have a 5-gallon drum of things I want to do. And I pray that I'm here till I'm 100. But if I go today, nobody cry, because I have done it all. And the only reason why I think people are afraid is because they really haven't done enough living. So that, I think what happens is, either people are going to reach an age where they're going to say, listen, I got to start living and make the best of the next 47, like I say, or they're going to say, you know what, I really got to start slowing down. And I'm not seeing that second option happening a lot. I'm seeing a lot of women and men even reinventing themselves and looking to do something different, and looking to make a career change, and looking to, you know, there's a certain sense of freedom when you're, and, you know, we're always our kids' parents and our parents' kids. But I've seen sort of a shift in that. And I started seeing it before COVID, but now, especially with COVID, people that were on the fence about certain things are being more daring to research, or at least start looking into it. And it's a lot of fun. It's very exciting to see that.
Well, you and I have a very similar outlook on the COVID, right? I told my family very early, we are not going to fear this, period. If this is what takes me out, that's what does it. And I do, to your point, I respect everyone's feelings on it, but this was a choice that we made. And I also have no fear of dying. And I want to talk about this a little bit, because I want to get your take. Death is inevitable. We are going to die. So I'm not sure where the fear comes from, because, man, that produced a lot of anxiety and nothing real positive. I'm looking towards death. No, it's just going to happen at some point, and whatever happens, happens. So talk to me about that. You have no fear of dying, because I also was raised Catholic. I don't necessarily consider myself that today, but I don't have a fear of death. I have more of a Buddhist outlook on things when it comes to this idea. So can you talk about when you say I have no fear of dying, because I want to explore this just a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great one, JM. And I think what happens is that I really look at it from the perspective of, I cannot control. I believe, I'm not saying that this is right or wrong. I believe that my day got here, the day I got here, my end date, my expiration date was already there. Okay. I don't even want to know. I've never been to a psychic. I've never been to a card reader. You know, that's a very Cuban thing too, that they go to these, you know, these card readers or whatever. It's just not my thing. I don't want to know. I want life to surprise me all the time. You know, I had 9 months to train for Kili. My husband spent almost every day watching videos on YouTube of how people were dying on Kili. And I'm like, listen, you want to fill your cart with Harley motorcycles so you can cash in my life insurance when they say I'm dead? He goes, yeah, but you need to watch this so you know what to watch out for. I want to be surprised. I want to get there and see it for the first time. I don't want to watch a video. I don't want to look at pictures. I want to be surprised when I get there. And that's the way that I look at life. But I'm not going to be worried. I don't know. But you know what? My people know I I have made as much impact as I could make until today. I try to do it on a daily basis. We have 13 kids sponsored through one child all around the world. I've met a great many of them already. I still have new ones that I keep adding. Every time my husband comes home, he's like, hey, this kid wasn't on the refrigerator yesterday. Did you sponsor another kid? And I'm like, no, it's Chloe. But, and we can't take it with us, is what I always tell him. So the more generous I am while I'm here, that's the only thing I can leave when I'm gone. I can't take anything with me. I lost my mom a year and a half ago, almost. She left. And you know what I did? My mother was always feeding everyone. So at her funeral, we had a giant celebration of life. It was like a giant party. Thank God there was no one else there, because we had one of the rooms was full of food and a coffee station. And we were just feeding everybody that was there, because that's what she loved to do in her life. And we celebrated and we laughed and we shared stories, and it was a great thing. But you know what? That's how I want to go. It's a party, guys. I'm going because I'm done. So I think one of the things with me is that I don't have an expectation of dying. I'm already too old to die young, right? And I'm still too young to die old. So I'm like in that weird middle, but I'm good, guys. And I tell them all the time, I am good. I am good. I am living it every day. I am living hard every day. I am sucking it dry every day. And every day I try to do something that is going to leave it a little better than I was when I got here. I already know that I have super improved the world by the kids that I'll leave here, my kids, and with my granddaughter. So far, only one, because my kids are being lame-os. But so I don't know if that answers your question, Jane, but that's the way I see it. I try to, how they say live every day like it's your last day. I live every day like it's just the day, to see what I can do, how I can serve, who I can serve, and what I can give, and how I can be happy and make others happy. And the next day I get to do it again if I have a next day.
It's a great outlook, and I share it with you, and it's something that I talk openly about. Did you talk to your mom about what she wanted, or was that just you? She fed people. And you said, this is how we're going to do it. I'm just curious, because this is something that most people don't like to talk about, but I'm open. Look, I want a celebration. 100%.
Yeah, my kids know. And listen, no, Cubans don't talk about that, because they think that if they talk about death, or if you purchase your plot early, it's going to come. And that if you don't, it's never going to come, right? So they don't talk about that. But I'll tell you what's really interesting. My mom was very practical. Okay, she lived with me. I mean, except for that first year and a half of my marriage, when we bought our first house, we brought her with us. She was a single mom and retired. And so she's lived with me all of my life. And the last time that we went, she was a cemetery lady, right? We had to go and visit my grandmother and my grandfather, and on their birthdays or whatever. And the last time that we were there which was about a month before she got sick, like she had her blood clot. Never would have happened in a million years, because we don't talk about that because we're Cuban Catholics, right? So we're driving in, and my grandparents are in a mausoleum, right? And she says, hey, when it's my turn, I want to be in the cemetery, but in the ground. I don't want a drawer. And I said, perfect. But, she's 84 years old. I'm thinking she's got another 16 years to live at least, whatever, not a big deal. So when the time came, I at least knew that little piece, at least I knew that she wanted. Now, my mother would have never agreed to have us make a big deal about her. But that was for me. I'm an only child, and that was for me and my cousins who loved her like their mom, and my kids who were very close, and my husband. That was for us. I needed to celebrate her life. And, if I had asked her, she would have never agreed to it. But my children know, listen, I want to be cremated. I want a giant ass party with a lot of Neil Diamond and Blue October, the two extremes. And I want my ashes to be spread in the Maasai Mara in Kenya. That's it. That's not a lot to ask.
No, it's really not. This is obviously not the financial service show, but I hope more have the conversation. It's not morbid. It's quite literally, death is just about as much a part of life as birth and bringing a new life to the world. So let's not fear that. All right, I got to ask you. I'm really excited. This is one of my favorite questions to ask: is what does freedom mean to you, especially with your Cuban background? I'm really curious to hear this because I think your outlook is going to be really. I'm excited to hear the answer.
Okay. So freedom, do you mean from an energetic perspective or from a tangible perspective?
I mean it however you take
Either
it.
one.
What
Okay.
does freedom
So
really mean?
yeah. So energetically is freedom to me is waking up and loving your life, right? Like people used to ask me, "Hey, how are you doing?" I would say, "Great." That was always my question. Now they ask me, "How are you doing?" I say, "I'm living the dream," because I really am. And I'm, my father went back to Cuba when my mother was 5 months pregnant. I grew up without a dad. We grew up poor, and all those things that don't equate to someone, 53 years later being able to say I'm living the dream, but I really am. And I'm grateful. I practice gratitude. I don't practice gratitude. Gratitude is a part of my life. Now, freedom from a tangible perspective, because of, where my parents came from. My mom got here in 65 and I was born in 67. So I was fortunate enough to be born in the greatest country on the planet. It's just my opinion. But I think that especially because of all the things, and I know the world has changed a lot, but I always go back to center. And for me, the center of what freedom is, which I believe freedom plus morality, like Chris Anhall would say, is really liberty, which is what we strive for here as a nation. And I'm super political. We don't have to get political here, but I do love my country, our country, and I do believe in the importance of standing up for what we believe is right. And I am a total constitutionalist. So when I hear the word freedom, when I hear the words liberty, they weigh heavily on me because there's a lot of reverence to what that means, especially because I know what it looks like from the stories to have lost it as an ancestry, and my grandfather got to this country when he was 60 years old, and he was still the proudest American I've ever known. He came here and he loved this country and became an American citizen and flew an American flag in our home until he died, at 96. Even in Alzheimer's, he didn't remember anybody's name. And we're at my cousin's. He was a police officer in Cuba, retired, and my cousin was graduating from the police academy. My grandfather's 94. He's already, not really there, and he didn't remember how to go to the bathroom or what our names were or how to do anything for himself. He hadn't stood up, on his own in 3 years. And they started playing our national anthem and brought out our flag. And he lowered his head, removed his hat that he was wearing, and he stood. He didn't even remember that he couldn't stand. And he stood for the duration of our national anthem. And that's the kind of love that we grew up with for our country. And it's, so I'm very intentional about what freedom means, because I know the stories of what it means to lose it.
Yeah, I mean, I love asking this question to my in-laws. They immigrated over, and there's something about it. When you don't have it, you know what it's like. But when you do, if you're not birthed into this, you appreciate it. Maybe not. I'm generalizing, but it's another level of appreciation. So I love that. What didn't I ask you, Berta, that you're like, I got to leave the audience with this, Jam? There's something on my brain. What do you want to leave the audience with today?
I just want to say, please pursue what it is that you're really, really passionate about and have the balls to go after it, because we get one chance around, guys. That's it. And whether you come back, you might not come back as the same person, but we get one chance. And trust me, the more people are out there living their life to the fullest, the better the world is going to be because of it. That's why I coach. That's why I speak. That's why I work with coaches, because I believe that the more people are out there bringing out the best in others and spreading a positive message, the better the world is going to be because of it. And I'm going to be gone eventually, but Chloe is going to grow up in this world, and Chloe's children are going to grow up in this world. And if I could have one little inkling of a stone that I can cast into to start a ripple, I'll do it all day. If I know that that's going to make a difference for her.
I love it. And the 9-year-old life coach, not taking $1, although offered. I love it. I can't wait to meet her. It's awesome. Berta, I love what you're doing. How can our listeners connect with you online?
So easiest way is my website is bertamedina.com, BertaMedina.com. I'm very active on LinkedIn, Berta Medina. My Facebook is Berta Medina, or Dreamers Succeed. I'm on Instagram. I don't do it much, but I mean, it's there. Dreamers Succeeding. But I just love to connect. I love to connect. I love to chat with people. I love to connect like-minded people. That's my happy place is when I'm connecting like-minded people. So, reach out, and I guarantee you there's someone in my tribe that you can probably serve or can serve you. And if I'm the only conduit to make that connection happen, I'll do it all day.
Well, like I said, I appreciate you being here. I love what you bring to the world. When she talks about connection, this is like legit. I think there was like 5 or 6 emails before I hardly finished up on the podcast last time. So thank you for showing up the way you do in the world and being here today. You're awesome.
My pleasure. Thank you, JM. Again, honored to be here and great to see you again, my friend.
As well. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. The perspective piece that I gained just talking to Berta again, I know you'll feel it as well. It's truly remarkable, just the outlook on life. Something that you can check out, maybe it'll provide the same. Go to Amazon, pick up your order of Champions Daily Playbook. I truly believe you'll get a lot from it. I'm proud of the work. I really think it can help a lot of people out there. And until next week, you guys continue to transcend in life. We'll talk to you then. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.